It is February 2024 and we are here talking about the real estate market here in Calgary. What's going on, what's happening, and let me tell you, the market is hot. There are multiple offers happening in our city, prices kind of going wild in some areas, and just really low inventory. So low that we haven't seen these types of numbers since 2006. So let's take a look at the data, let's see what's happening in the market, and if you need help and you're trying to figure out this market, reach out to us, info@chamberlaingroup.ca, and we got your back. So let's jump into the data and let's see what's happening. We have a lot that's happened in our market, so much so that you can see right down in here in this area, the red line basically shows sales, the blue lines are the active inventory, and we are still in a very tight market. Even though we have seen benchmark prices continue to climb over this last year. So much so that our benchmark price has climbed to $572,000, which is about a 10% increase year over year compared to 2023. So we had 2,137 new listings that came on the market over this last month, which is probably a solid showing. Like, that's a lot of new listings, but we still had 1,650 sales that happened, which is a fairly big increase compared to last year. And when you take a look at the actual number of sales per price range in the city, there has been growth across the board. So you can see anything down here at the 200,000 range, there was growth between last year and this year, and all the way up through 300, actually all the way up right over $1 million. Every price range has seen an increase from the green bars to the blue bars meaning this year to date. And it's just what's happening in our market. There are a lot of sales that are happening. It seems like there is never going to be, or has not been, enough inventory coming to the market to keep up with the demand that's happening in our city right now. There's just not enough houses for sale and not enough houses being built. This is a continual story that's coming from last year and even the year before, and we're still seeing that. But what we are noticing is in this price range here, which is 700 to 900, as well as the 600 to 700 range, the drastic growth that has happened in those price ranges across the city is just that. It's drastic. Now, when we take a look at the actual months of supply for all these different price ranges, the only one that is not in a strong seller's market is above $1 million. I mean, but it's still not even in quite a buyer's market. It's actually a balanced market, where last year at this time, it was in a buyer's market. So that type of price point is not as in the favor of the buyers as it used to be a year ago. And the demand is increasing for $1 million and above. Now, that's across the whole city. Is that the same as detached homes or semi-detached? Well, we'll get to that in a moment. But for right now, you can see everything under $1 million is sitting in a seller's market still as we enter 2024. And with that said, we were at an average across 2023 was 1.4 months of inventory. Now, it was the average of last year. And for the first month of this year, in January, we actually were sitting at 1.3 months. So our market has slidden even further into that seller's market with more demand, less inventory than it was seen as of last year. And when you break down all the different property types, you can see that detached homes actually dropped to 1.35 months of inventory. Semi-detached jumped up a little bit to 1.67 months of inventory. Townhouses went down to 0.87 months of inventory, and apartments went down to 1.4 months of inventory. So what that means, especially townhouses, that is less than 1 month worth of inventory. So again, the easiest way to think about it, if you got 4 weeks in a month and you're at 0.87, you have probably 3 and a bit weeks to basically, all the current inventory of townhomes is gonna get bought up, and every 3.5 or so weeks, there's gonna be all new set of townhomes on the market. That's how quickly townhomes are moving. And if you're thinking about 1.5 months, so detached is 1.3, semi is 1.6, again, that's only about 6 weeks worth of inventory. So every 6 weeks, the market is roughly having brand new inventory coming to the market, and that's how fast everything is moving in our market still. And then when we look at the number of sales per month, we actually have a high number. The only year since 2013 that was higher than this past January in 2024 was in 2022, where we saw almost 2,000 sales that month. Well, this month we had 1,650 sales that happened, which is about a 38% increase compared to last year in 2023. So last year at this time, the number of new listings that came on the market was actually under 2,000 listings. This year, right now, in January, we saw 2,137 new listings come to the market. And so as you can see on the chart, there's a widespread, anywhere from this 1,900 down on the bottom, probably to 3,300, which could have been either 2015 or 2021, because the colors are very similar there, right? My guess is it's 2015, but we are still at that bottom range of number of new listings coming on the market when you look back at historically. However, if you look at the last number of years, we're right in the middle, because you can see the blue dot somewhere right in there, green dot right down in here. So we're right in the middle of what has happened. So it's not too high, not too low, but there's still a healthy amount of inventory coming to our market, which at the end of the day isn't really slowing our market down, because if we really want to see prices stabilize, we're going to have to see sometimes maybe even that number not double, but it's got to be a lot higher to make a difference in our market. So when it comes to the inventory, the total number of inventory that we have on the market, we're at a record low, as you can see. Right here, it shows that we had 2,137 total inventory, which is lower than what it was last year. And in fact, we haven't seen this type of number since 2006. And so we're in new territory again this year when it comes to inventory, which means if you're out looking at houses and you're going to showings, I can probably guarantee you there's potentially other buyers booking similar times, and you're kind of bumping into people at showings. And that's kind of our market right now, because there's just not enough homes for everyone that are wanting to actually purchase a property right now. So if you're liking this data, you're liking this information, this is all helpful for you, then you need to go and download our PDF guide for this month, the market update report. Head down into the description. You can grab it, you can read it, a lot more information in there, and I know you're gonna like it. But let's talk about detached properties first. So I'm gonna break down detached properties, semi-detached, townhomes, and apartments right now, and kind of share some insights of what we are seeing that's happening in the market. So when you look at detached homes, they actually broke through the $700,000 price mark for benchmark pricing. And it actually is at $702,000. And so that's kind of a lot compared to where we've come from. And you can see that in the green line, right, over the years, and how that has changed and increased. You can still see in the chart here that there's low inventory and there's high sales. Like that gap is really, really tight when it's sitting there. And so there's a strong demand for this product type in our city still. And as we move into the year, as we continue furthering into 2024, we're just gonna see that demand probably staying there and maybe even increasing as we go into the spring. So even if we don't have enough inventory coming to the market, which hopefully there's a lot more sellers that are thinking of making that move, because of reasons like refinancing their property, trying to make changes, maybe they need to sell for some other reasons, but hopefully there's a lot of inventory coming to the market this year because we kind of need it. And what's interesting too is the noticeable improvement in sales activity mainly happened for homes that are around that $500,000 range. But the most significant gains in price ranges was actually over $700,000. And let me show you why. So when you see here, the sales by price range, this section right here is the 7 to $1 million price range. And look at that difference compared to last year, as well as between the 6 to 700 range. Those are horrible squares, but you get the picture. So you can see between 6 and $1 million, essentially, the number of sales that happened compared to previous years has really grown. I mean, in 2022, we saw really strong growth. 23 actually dropped quite a bit, but we are right back there with the number of sales in those price ranges for detached properties. And when you look at the months of supply for detached properties based on price ranges, the one thing that kind of stands out to me is this little section right here. The $300,000 to $400,000 price range is sitting at 2 months of inventory for detached properties. But how many homes, detached homes, are selling for under $400,000? Well, I think last month I could probably count it on one hand. At the end of the day, when you're looking at all of this, everything from $1 million and under is in a seller's market. When you jump into $1 million plus, it's actually, again, that inventory level has dropped from last year, which was flirting with the buyer's market, but it's now in a solid, balanced market. So that means the demand for properties over $1 million has increased compared to last year, specifically for detached properties. And finally, when you look at the actual number of new listings by these price ranges again, look how many more listings came on the market for detached homes that were between a 7 and $1 million. Like nearly 350 properties, where last year was probably, I don't know, 240, somewhere in there. And so it's a really big jump for those types of properties. Same with over $1 million. We saw probably 160 to 75 new listings come on the market for properties $1 million and over this last month. But let's take a look at semi-detached properties, because there was 223 new listings that came to the market for semi-detached properties. There's 131 sales that happened last month, and the benchmark price kind of stood right at about $625,000, which was slightly lower than last month, but it's still 11% higher than last year. And so a semi-detached property is something that is attached to another place, but usually just two properties side by side. It's not your townhouse and row house. So what you're gonna notice when you look at the price ranges based on semi-detached properties, there's a noticeable increase in the $500,000 to $700,000 range compared to last year, specifically in this $600,000 to $700,000 range. So there's a lot of attached properties, so what they're called semi-detached, that are being built and sold. So this could include like older duplexes, but it's also including like some of the newer infills, or something that's been built in the last 10 or 15 years, where it's two properties on a single lot that is subdivided but attached together. And so what's interesting about this product type, and it will be very interesting to see what happens, because the $1 million range up, a lot of detached infills in Calgary are definitely worth over $1 million. But the semi-detached, I've noticed for years, they've had this hard time breaking through some of that price point. They have to be in the right areas, the right built inside. They gotta nail it. But it's really odd, because if there isn't sales to support a semi-detached property pricing that high, and there's detached properties that are basically selling for not that much more, so they're trying to aim for $1 million and you got a detached selling for 1.2, it's too close. Like, people aren't gonna be willing to make that jump. Like, it's still probably a $900,000 property. These are all made up numbers, but just to give you a sense. And so if you're looking at semi-detached properties, there is still great opportunity for properties under $1 million. However, there are some places that are really high end in the city. And when you look at the actual months of supply, this is exactly what I mean. $1 million and over has 6 months worth of inventory. However, that has declined from about 6.8 probably last year, but it's still in a very strong buyer's market when it comes to semi-detached properties in the city. And that's again because it's that price point. It's like paying $1 million, $950 versus $1,050,000. That's a big gap to jump from a buyer's perspective, even though you as a seller might be going, you know what, it's only $100,000. Well, it's right, it is only $100,000, but it's over $1 million. And that's a big price gap for some buyers to make that change on. But as you can see, as soon as you go from 7 to 900,000, or $1 million, I should say under $1 million, you are sitting at 2 months of inventory right now. which is great. That's in a seller's market. And so if you have these types of properties and you're trying to sell them, you have to nail the pricing right now. You can't just ask whatever you want. You got to nail the pricing and know exactly what it's worth. And then if you look at the actual new listings coming on the market, you can see there is a strong showing of properties over $1 million, sellers trying to ask for more than potentially what it's worth, but you also have a very strong showing when it comes to $700,000 to $1 million in this product type. Now on to townhomes. Townhomes have just been going through the roof the last number of years. As our affordability has become more of an issue, more buyers who were hoping to purchase detached properties or attached properties are now looking at townhomes because, you know, the prices have slid up and their budget has kind of stayed the same. And so townhomes, the demand is very, very strong. There was 322 new listings this last month and 297 sales. So roughly, that's like literally 25 places that stayed on the market, not including stuff that was on the market before. So that's a very strong demand when it comes to townhome type properties. The benchmark price for townhomes actually surged to $426,000 this last month, which is an increase of 20% year over year. But it's not outdone by apartments, which I'm going to get to in a moment. When you look at the sales that happened broken down by price range for townhomes, there is a huge surge between $400,000 to $500,000, which is also actually, when you look at it too, there's also a massive surge between $500,000 to $600,000. So probably if you go back maybe a couple months, in one of our market videos, I did say that homes or townhomes that are priced over $500,000 weren't seeing the activity like they were under 500. So if you had something at 420 versus 550, very different markets. But what we might be seeing now is more demand in the $500,000 to $600,000 range than we have in the last number of months. So if you have more of that high-end townhome, like a villa, kind of the bungalow style, like the higher end townhomes, you might actually see more buyers interested in your product type than you did last year. So that could be a great thing for those that are thinking of selling that type of property this year. And when it comes to the months of supply for townhomes, it is no surprise that everything is sitting basically at or in a seller's market when you're looking at the inventory and everything that's happening in townhomes right now. We are in a very solid seller's market pretty much for all price points for all townhomes across the city. And so where are we seeing a lot of these new listings coming from in the price ranges on townhomes? Well, it's actually a ton of properties coming on in that $400,000 to $500,000 range. So much so that it's almost double. I mean, you've got 60 places last year that came on the market in this price range, and it's probably about 110 that came on this last month. And so that's a massive increase in what has come on the market in that price range. Now, you also have to remember too, that there were more properties worth under 400,000. So stuff maybe was listing at 380 that now could list at 420. So that also has something to do with it. But you can clearly see that this is where a lot of the inventory is coming on the market, is in that $400,000 to $500,000 price range for townhome properties. So let's talk about apartment condos. Well, again, for a long time, apartment condos haven't really flourished in our city. And because of affordability, all the things that are happening in our market, it has been their time. Between this and townhomes, they've been hot commodities. And for many of you who have owned apartments for a long time and you've had to keep it because you couldn't afford to sell it later on, I mean, this is again gonna be another year where you're gonna have great opportunities to offload these. I call them, you're an accidental landlord, right? You wanna offload these types of properties, you wanna put that cash into your current property, whatever it is you wanna do. But there's opportunities to sell apartments this coming year. And so for the apartment segment of the market, we saw a 54% year over year increase in the number of sales that happened. So 488 sales happened in January of this year. Now there's lots of new listings that happened this last month, but the benchmark price actually was at $324,000, which is a 19% increase from last year as well. So the largest price gains that we noticed in the city actually occurred in some of the most affordable areas, which was in your northeast and east zones for apartments compared to all the other parts of the city as well. So when you break down the actual price range for all the sales for apartments, between 200 to 300, we definitely saw an increase compared to last year. Now between 300 and 400, a massive increase compared to last year in terms of number of sales that happened, as well as the properties that are priced in the $400,000 range. I mean, some of these are like easily double the number of sales that happened last year in those price ranges. And when you look at the months of supply, when you're looking at this, the one that I find very interesting is this one right here. Everything else is under 5 months of inventory. So your $500,000 to $600,000 range is kind of sitting in a balanced market. And then everything else, 500 and less, is for sure in a seller's market. But that one price range, $600,000 to $700,000 range, I mean, that's sitting in 11 to 12 months of inventory in our city. So this says to me one of two things. One, there's just not enough demand for that price point for apartments. But number two, which I think is probably more accurate, is there are a lot of sellers who are trying to reach for the sky, let's say, and get more than what it's actually worth, and trying to just be like, well, let's put it on for that and let's see what happens. Well, what's happening is you have 11 to 12 months of inventory and you don't have a lot of demand. And when you look at the actual broken down from the number of new listings coming on the market, when you look at that same price range, I mean, that's a small amount, maybe 10 new listings came on. But it's enough to kind of swing that a month of inventory so far out of whack compared to what all the other price ranges are doing for apartments. But when you look at the 300, that is a ton of new product that's come to the market this last month, and the 400 to 500 as well. I mean, that's probably 70 or so listings. But the largest growth that we have seen is properties between $300,000 to $400,000 coming to the market for apartments in Calgary. So if you like stats and you want to know more of what happened last year, head over here and watch this video, and don't forget to download the PDF guide in the description, and we'll see you in the guide or on the video.